Members, next we have on our agenda the State of the DOT by Secretary Justin Powell. Secretary Powell, would you please come? And I know you have a number of distinguished guests here. And before you tell us about what's happening at the SCDOT, perhaps you might want to introduce those kind folks.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Grooms, members of the committee. It's my pleasure to be in front of you for my third State of the DOT. We do have several of our commissioners here with us today. Ask them to raise their hands when I call their name. Our chairman and 4th District Commissioner Max Metcalf, our Audit Committee Chairman and 5th District Commissioner Curtis Spencer, 1st District Commissioner TJ Johnson, 3rd District Commissioner Pam Christopher, At-Large Commissioner Britt Blackwell, and At-Large Commissioner Thomas Rhodes. I also am privileged to have what I believe is the best leadership team of any state agency in South Carolina. I have our Deputy Secretary for Engineering, Rob Perry, our Deputy Secretary for Finance and Administration, Carl McCotry, Deputy Secretary for Intermodal, Jen Necker, Deputy Secretary for Planning, Leah Quattlebaum, our Chief Counsel, Barbara Wessinger, our Internal Audit Director, Mark Labriere, our Chief of Staff, Alan Hutto, and I think lurking around there, if he hasn't already gotten to the lobby, our Director of State Government Affairs, Ted Creech, that y'all are all very familiar with. Since my last State of DOT, we have celebrated many milestones in South Carolina. In the past year, we have wrapped up the largest debris cleanup mission from Hurricane Hugo, collecting over 5.4 million cubic yards of debris from Hurricane Helene. And all repairs, save one that'll be done later this spring, have been completed from that devastating storm in the upstate. We rolled out Blue Speed feedback trailers with our partners in the Department of Public Safety and in our construction industry to help protect construction personnel working in our largest work zones on $6.8 billion worth of construction in all 46 counties. We broke ground on widening the first 8 miles of I-95 at the Georgia border, as well as replacing the bridge over the Savannah River, which is the single largest contract DOT has ever issued and part of an over $800 million project to start fixing the drive on I-95. And Chairman Peeler, we covered the flat on I-85 in Cherokee and Spartanburg counties, and I-85 is fully open to traffic in those communities. When a tanker truck incinerated an overpass on I-20 in Aiken County over Father's Day weekend, DOT and our contractor partners had the interstate reopened in 36 hours. And last week, we were putting down the replacement beams on that bridge that will be on track to reopen ahead of Father's Day this year. When snow and ice threatened our communities for 3 consecutive weekends this past January and February, our crews worked continuously to keep roads open and put down over 6 million gallons of brine to keep South Carolina moving forward. These accomplishments reflect the progress made over the past 9 years since the General Assembly invested in South Carolina's transportation network. We've been delivering what we were asked to deliver, to start bringing the state back from 30 years of deferred maintenance. But South Carolina has changed quickly in that intervening time, and we must be prepared with the tools needed to begin addressing those challenges facing South Carolina. From the General Assembly's action back in 2017, SCDOT has made continued progress on its 10-year plan. When the plan began, we had less than $3 billion under construction across South Carolina. Today, we have nearly $7 billion under construction. And that impact is visible. In the past 9 years, SCDOT has accomplished the following. Put out over 1,200 miles of rural road safety projects to address what was then South Carolina's worst in the nation rural road fatality rate. On the corridors where we've completed that work, we've seen a 30% reduction in fatal and serious injury crashes. And South Carolina no longer has the nation's worst rural road fatality rate. We put over out 10,000 miles of paving, and either to be complete or under contract, on putting out over a quarter of the nation's 4th largest state highway system. Conditions are improving on our most traveled roads, but we know that there's still much work to be done. Bridges remain a challenge, but we're making progress. 471 bridges have been put out to contract to replace or rehabilitate aging structures. The investments made by the General Assembly in 2024 have been programmed and projects are underway. The Executive Budget Office last month gave us access to the $200 million that the General Assembly appropriated in this year's budget, and we've begun programming those dollars. And progress is happening on every interstate in South Carolina. The first two phases of Carolina Crossroads, or Malfunction Junction, have wrapped up. We're about to get underway on the next phase on I-20 later this spring. And 3 contracts widening I-26 between Columbia and Charleston are on or ahead of schedule for completion, and we'll be prepared to let the next contract on fixing 26 later this summer. This progress has not been without challenges in terms of advancing South Carolina's transportation network, particularly in terms of inflation, aging bridges, and ongoing population growth that we've seen. Buying power has eroded substantially in the past 5 years. 1 penny of the gas tax, roughly $35 to $40 million, buys substantially less than what it did when we began the 10-year plan in 2017. And that means we're pushing out fewer projects. A few years ago, we were pushing out 1,000 miles of paving. Today, we're only pushing out about 700 miles of paving in a given year. It's a trend seen nationwide. The Federal Highway Administration's Highway Construction Cost Index.
Secretary
Yes, sir.
Powell, could you suspend just for a second? I've got the senator from York trying to get recognized to ask a question.
Thank you. I just, if I may,
Yes,
very
sir.
brief. All right, so this 114 miles to 87,
Yes, sir.
right? So is that just related to inflation in asphalt? Is this unique to resurfacing, or is this aggregate across the entirety of what you buy?
So that's basically taking the value of the penny relative to how much the average per mile cost is on paving roads. When we started, it was at $250,000 to $300,000. Now it's at $500,000. But what I would say is it's indicative of what we are seeing nationwide. And what I'll share is, we've seen that not only nationwide, but we've seen it in our interstate program. So when we talk about our widening program, our construction program, Governor McMaster put in his budget a $600 million request, really just to catch up on the inflation, because what we've seen is those prices have gone up. Malfunction Junction is up about 32%, 33%. I-26, that program's up 50%. 95 is up 132%. So we've seen those costs go up across the board on all forms of construction that we have.
You're buying concrete, rebar, asphalt, aggregate, labor, machinery, right? Where do you see the most pronounced inflation?
I would say it's across the board. I mean, we've seen all of our price indications go up. Obviously, asphalt has gone up in price. We've seen concrete and cement go up in price, and the cost of labor, trucking, all of those things that go into a project have increased. And it's not just a South Carolina issue, it's a nationwide issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Our other major challenge are aging bridges across South Carolina. Many of them were built in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and they are continuing to age and approach that mark where we have to do a replacement or a major rehabilitation. Right now, we've got 2,500 bridges that are 60 years or older, and if we keep up with our current investment levels, that number will rise to 3,900 in 10 years. But we're making progress thanks to the investments made by this General Assembly in terms of addressing that issue. At one point last year, we had 86 bridges closed across the state. Today, that number stands at 73. At one point last year, we were up to 742 bridges with load postings. We've gotten that number down to 700. But if we're going to continue to keep up with addressing this looming crisis, continued and recurring investment will be required above the $200 million or so that we appropriate out of the Highway Fund for bridges. We have a pipeline built up and ready to go, and we would be ready to roll if additional investment came our way. And then on the last of our challenges, but certainly not the least, I think what we all know is that South Carolina has been discovered as a state, and we are seeing an influx of new residents every single day into South Carolina. Right now, the equivalent of one South Carolina-made Boeing 787 is landing and unloading 200 new residents into our state every single day. While this population growth has brought new jobs and investment, it is also straining our infrastructure. The 2017 roads bill, as I've said before, was a repair bill. It was not designed to accommodate the rapid growth that we are seeing in every corner in South Carolina. I know there's going to be a lot of debate going on in the General Assembly about what do we do about growth in South Carolina. And we cannot forget the impact that this growth is having on our state's transportation system, particularly off of our interstates. SCDOT has worked hard over the past several years to continuously optimize and improve our operations internally. I want to share just a few examples of how we are working to deliver more on behalf of the citizens of South Carolina. We've been reviewing and streamlining our processes, especially through new technology. One of the most common complaints I get is about our encroachment permit process. We've conducted a Six Sigma review of our processes. We've found ways to standardize them and cut unnecessary reviews. And later this year, we will be rolling out a new encroachment permit system that will provide a better user experience, but also provide more transparency and accountability on when we issue permits to people looking to access our state highway system. To address our bridge challenge, we have restructured our bridge maintenance office and implemented new district bridge units in every single one of our districts. We just issued new bridge standards, which will put common sense back into the design of our smallest bridges that should allow us to get bridges through the pipeline much more quickly with fewer right-of-way and environmental impacts, and hopefully at a lower cost. We've taken a critical look to realign our workforce so that we can be leaner but better paid. And in December, we initiated the process to reduce our regulations by 30%, finding redundant and outdated regulations for elimination. We will continue to work internally to become more efficient and deliver more for the people of South Carolina. For the past year, there's been an ongoing discussion about new tools that could help SCDOT deliver more and accelerate our projects and confront the challenges that are facing South Carolina. I'm grateful and appreciative of the work of this committee, as well as the parallel effort that's been going on in the House of Representatives on how we can deliver more projects faster. The legislation work done by this committee and currently on the calendar for third reading includes several important new tools. I want to share with you the impacts that these tools could potentially have for moving South Carolina forward. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, guides how the federal government considers the environmental impacts from projects. The federal law allows states to assume those responsibilities from the Federal Highway Administration and directly manage the environmental process. This is not a new concept. It's done in states as large as California, Florida, and Texas, but also states similar in size to us, Arizona, Utah, and Nebraska. And what has been consistent from the experience of those states is that by having control of their own destiny, they have been able to accelerate project approvals by months and years. It maintains all of the environmental protections required by federal law, but I think by having us in the driver's seat, it allows us to consider the natural and cultural unique heritage that we have in South Carolina. With legislative approval, SCDOT is prepared to immediately begin the process with the Federal Highway Administration to assume NEPA authorities. We've already assigned staff, and they've already begun preparing the manuals and procedures needed should this bill pass. We are prepared to act immediately. States across our region, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Virginia, and soon Tennessee, have had success in using choice lanes, which are optional lanes that allow drivers to bypass congestion for a user fee. Choice lanes provide an opportunity to provide fast, predictable travel for those willing to pay, but it also improves congestion and travel for those who never enter a choice lane. User fees are adjusted based on congestion and generally aim to provide at least 45-mile-per-hour traffic for those in the choice lanes. And for each person that chooses to go into a choice lane, congestion is improved for those in the free lanes. Our current interstate plan is well programmed well into the mid-2030s, and that assumes the additional funding proposed by the governor is provided. And that means corridors like I-26 and I-526 in Charleston, and I-85 in Greenville are at least a decade out from construction. This is an opportunity for us to accelerate those projects, but also to lower the burden on the general gas taxpayer. We've begun the process of studying how choice lanes could work in some of our most congested corridors. I want to share as an example to you some findings that we have from the I-26, I-526 corridor in Charleston as a way to highlight the potential of this corridor, of this tool. So let's take the example of the afternoon commute on Long Point Road in Mount Pleasant to Ashley Phosphate on I-526 and I-26. If we don't do anything today and keep things the way they are, the afternoon drive will be 40 minutes in 2040, worse than today's already congested reality. SCDOT is planning a program to rebuild I-526 between Mount Pleasant and West Ashley. That's just for the 526 corridor. At $7 billion is the current cost for that project. And at that price, it is unlikely that we will do any other interstate capacity projects in the rest of the state for 15 to 20 years. Now, that project does have a benefit and would improve commute times by about 10 minutes on that route, or about 25%. So we've studied how a choice lane system would operate by adding 2 choice lanes in each direction on I-526 between Mount Pleasant and West Ashley, and 2 choice lanes in each direction on I-26 between I-526 and Volvo Cars Drive in Ridgeville. All existing lanes that are there today would remain free as they are now. Numbers I'm about to show you are preliminary, but I believe are very powerful on the impact of this tool. If that system is envisioned as operational, the commute in the free lanes would drop by 35 minutes or 35% to 26 minutes. But for those who choose to pay the user fee and go into the choice lanes, the drive would just be 12 minutes. But more importantly, while the cost of a choice lane system is probably in the ballpark of $10 billion, the offsetting revenue generated would reduce the state's cost to approximately $4.6 billion. We believe these estimates are conservative, and we believe through the power of market competition that we may be able to see greater results than that. Bottom line is that this study indicates is that a system of choice lanes could provide better commuting outcomes for residents regardless if they choose to pay or not, but at the same time lower the burden on the general gas taxpayer for the rest of the state. There are other tools in the toolbox that are considered in this legislation that will help better align us for the future we already find us in. SCDOT's procurement authorities were established in the 1950s and predate the state procurement code by approximately 30 years. Building and maintaining our highways falls under DOT's authorities, but in the intervening time, what means managing a highway has changed. That means adding new technology, installing transit shelters, and building rest areas. Allowing SCDOT to better manage the entire right-of-way under its procurement authorities will speed up projects and clean up responsibilities. And adding new collaborative procurement tools can also help us deliver our largest projects. South Carolina maintains the 4th largest state highway system in the country. We need to incentivize right-sizing our system voluntarily so that local roads can be best managed by the local governments closest to the people. Transportation planning in this state is fractured between the DOT, the Port Authority, Palmetto Rail, DMV, Aeronautics. We need to have a formal process for bringing together state agencies for coordinated plans and policies while also making sure regional planning is done in line with state plans. And finally, establishing a clock on municipal consent will help us keep projects on track. If these tools are put into DOT's toolbox, we would be prepared to immediately jump into implementing. An enhanced toolbox will make a big difference in how we deliver projects, particularly on our most largest and complex projects that we have out there that are necessary for a fast-growing and rapidly changing state. We will be tuning up and supercharging the engine. But in order for that engine to go further than it ever has, it will need the fuel to power that engine. There is an expectation from the public for us to do more. It will require more fuel for us to make it happen. As we move forward into the next 10-year plan, it is imperative that the state continues to invest in its transportation system to keep that engine going. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to brief y'all today, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
We have the Senator from Florence.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. It's very good information. The choice lane certainly intrigues me, and I know every legislator represents their own district. You mentioned here on the third bullet point, I-526 in Charleston and I-85 in Greenville. Is there any consideration for I-95, and in particular closer down to the South Carolina-Georgia border for choice lanes?
So we have a project right now on I-95 that would be adding basically an extra lane from the Georgia border. That project's under construction all the way up to exit 33. Choice lanes, the incentive is having high amounts of routine, regular congestion that have people that want to go do it. So when we look at the state, the corridors where it's probably most likely to have that level of congestion are going to be 526 in Charleston, I-85 between Greenville and Spartanburg counties, and then I-77 up in the York County area. So, but certainly, if the tool's in the toolbox, I can't really look at them right now as an option for us, but we would look at all of our corridors for potential options from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Charleston.
Secretary, thank you for coming here today, and thank you and your agency for all your input that you guys have provided with the modernization bill. It's really, I think, helped craft a good product. That's going to be a significant step forward. One thing I do want to point out on the looking forward, I'm a big supporter of choice lanes, but looking forward to this 2024 number, it is, I guess we're 14 years ahead of the curve. It's 40 minutes now in the afternoon, if we're lucky, to go from Long Point to Ashley Phosphate, and Senator Adams backed me up with that. And I'll say if someone's ladder comes off the back of their truck on the Don Holt, then it becomes an hour really quickly. So we are already at that 40-minute timeline. But I appreciate, and I think the takeaway, correct me if I'm wrong with that, is if you guys without choice lanes were to do that lane expansion, that would eat up the entire budget statewide for the entire year. Is that correct?
So just to kind of put it in context, our construction program is $6.8 billion. It's a $7 billion project. We program about $500 million a year into interstate capacity projects right now. That's very focused on I-26, I-95, and the malfunction Junction Carolina Crossroads project. But I think to take on that project of that size would basically be eating up that program for 15 to 20 years.
Yeah. So we've got to put more tools in the toolbox to get ahead. We can't wait 15 years. It's already miserable as it is. I'm a nerd for all things transportation. Love reading about this stuff. Love studying this stuff. Have you guys looked at any options for ramp metering, and that's setting up the stoplights as you come onto the interstate and using AI technology to make sure that we don't overload interstates, because of course when it gets too congested, everything slows down, but there's a balance point of having the correct throughput, and the trade-off there is you back up a little bit more traffic on the secondary roads, but your interstates and high congestion areas flow a little bit more freely. Is that anything that has been looked at by your department, and if it's not allowed by current statute, is there anything that we can do to take a closer look at that?
No, we are actively looking at it right now on the I-85 corridor in Greenville and Spartanburg counties. So that's being looked at by the local planning organization up there. It's the Greenville-Pickens Area Transportation Study. So I would say that that's probably going to be the first place in South Carolina we look at. Again, not officially yet, but something that's actively being studied right now.
And my understanding of that, using that technology, it's relatively low cost because you're setting up a couple sensors, you're setting up a stoplight, and then it allows you to achieve the maximum efficiency on the interstate.
It buys you a little bit more time before the main line starts grinding down. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Senator from Pickens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Powell, boots on the ground, guys in the district that clean up the trees, fix the potholes, all that kind of stuff. Where do you stand right now as far as employees and empty FTE slots right now?
Sure. Our vacancy rate statewide is about 87% right now. So we saw that fill rate increase when we adjusted our pay rate to about $20 an entry is our entry pay now. What I would say, it depends on what county you're in. There are counties, I'll use the example of Beaufort. A lot of people are moving to Beaufort, but they're not necessarily coming to work. And so we do have challenges down there. I would say compensation is always going to be something that helps drive that issue. And then the higher we can get that fill rate, then the higher they can respond to those routine maintenance requests and go forward. So, but we've been pretty steady. We got it back up a few years ago, and we've been steady about that 87, 88% number.
That's your vacancy rate, or that?
That's the fill rate.
Okay.
So about 12% vacant.
Yeah, okay, I heard it backwards. How long does it take when you start advertising a job to get somebody actually in the seat of a truck or tractor or whatever?
I'd have to get that number. I mean, there's a process we got to work through the state hiring application, so that slows you down a little bit in terms of that. But certainly we can get them through the drug screen, those type of background clearance, all that. It can take us 60 days, probably what I would say, but I can get you that specific number.
I'm just concerned, are we getting people in there quick enough to help?
Yeah, it's a competitive job market, sir. I wouldn't say that we could always get faster. We got to work through kind of requirements of state HR as well.
We have Senator from Ori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, Mr. Secretary. And I wanted to really thank your board for coming and joining us today. I mean, I know y'all are doing this work for all the fame and fortune that comes with it anyway. So there's not much there. But to come out this morning when I know you have other things you could be doing, and just be here to support the secretary and to show this committee respect is really, I really appreciate it. And thank you for your work. Two quick questions. One. I would ask, what's the status on what I would call construction infrastructure? I mean, the construction companies that are doing much of it, doing the work. And remember, we were short at a point in time where we needed more folks. Where do we stand on that issue right now?
Sure. So what I would say is right now competition is good. So I share on our bridge projects right now. We are probably getting, last several lettings, 8 to 10 firms bidding on that. So we've seen our existing firms ramp up. We've seen firms from North Carolina and Georgia enter our market because we have a predictable and reliable funding stream. At least folks know kind of what to expect in South Carolina. We work hard to try to keep them once they enter the market. Obviously, just kind of to Senator Rice's point, I mean, labor is a challenge not only for us, but it's also a challenge for them. And one of the things that we support their Be Pro, Be Proud initiative that they do with contractors do along with the trucking industry, just to try to encourage folks to go into trades, I think is an important thing. I feel like right now we have good competition. I mean, I always want more competition, but we do have good competition right now.
Have you seen any decrease? I mean, has there been a flattening, or I know the inflation factor has been, for a number of years now, has been so kind of jaw-dropping.
We saw a spike basically starting about 21. It leveled out in about end of 24, beginning of 25. What I would say right now is prices have flattened, have not continued that upward trajectory. Right. We haven't seen them coming down. And again, asphalt is highly sensitive to the price of oil, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see, not of any fault of DOT or the contracting community, but just if we're talking about price of oil at $105, we'll probably see a little impact from things until we get through that issue.
And the last question about the NEPA, taking over the NEPA, if we're able to do, the legislation passes and we take over those responsibilities under NEPA, and you sort of answered this question. You've already shifted some existing employees to work on that transition. Do you anticipate having to staff that up? I mean, is that going to require additional employees to carry out the functions of that responsibility?
So, we already have a pretty robust environmental office. We have biologists, we have archaeologists that are doing work for us today. prior to the kind of deferred retirement resignation program that had occurred in the federal government. It was 2 people in the Columbia Federal Highway Division office that were doing that work. Our permits are actually being done through Raleigh right now. We're out of the North Carolina division. So we've kind of set up that staff of folks already internally for us to do it. It will take kind of what we've understood. The certification process takes about a year for us to get there. But once we have legislative approval, we would immediately from there begin working with them. We've already been back channeling with Federal Highways about, if this bill passes, we'd be ready to go pretty quickly. And they've been adapting and ready for us to come aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate you.
Next, we have Senator from Richland, Senator Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you, Mr. Secretary. You brought to our attention, the atrophy or decline of the buying power of the gas tax. And what I'm wondering, I'm not trying to get you in trouble with this question, okay? But when you consider that we are a state that's growing, and I get it that the atrophy we've seen the buying power of the gas tax, that can be attributed to forces beyond our control. But do you believe that the current amount of the gas tax is sufficient to meet the present needs of present transportation needs, if you will, for our state, as well as the future needs of our state? And if not, what cautionary words would you have for this body?
You are going to get me in trouble, Senator Walker. What I would say this right now is that, we are delivering on what we were asked to deliver by the General Assembly back in 2017 when the roads bill passed. Now, what I would say is we're buying less today than we did back then. So we are not delivering as much as we were asked to deliver back then. The challenge has been growth across the state. Now, I would say anecdotally, I still get complaints about potholes, but I don't get as many pothole complaints anymore. I get complaints about, it used to take me 15 seconds to get through this intersection. It's taking me 15 minutes to get through this intersection. So what I would say is if there's an expectation for us to deliver more and to provide more, more projects to address issues, then I think there's a policy decision that has to be made by the General Assembly to look at that. It can be in any form and fashion. Other states have been looking at ways of the electric vehicle fees issue. We talked about in the subcommittee. There are dedications of North Carolina. They dedicate part of the sales tax out there. I think that's probably a discussion, again, that we're happy to support and participate in, but I think if there's a desire for us to do more, it will require more resources for us to do it.
And all I would ask of you, Mr. Secretary, is that if we reach a point where you believe that the current gas tax or the amount of the same is not sufficient to meet the transportation needs of our state, or at least accomplish the objectives that we've set out as a body, I would just ask that you be very candid and frank about that, and tell us the truth, okay? Whether we want to hear it or not. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we have Senator from Berkeley. Didn't you ask to be recognized? Oh, okay. The question was answered. And after that, we have the Senator from York. Before the Senator from York asks his questions, I would like to remind the Senator from Richland of a statement that was once given to this committee by the former Secretary of Transportation, Christy Hall. Her so simple comment to this committee, and it rings true, and I've mentioned it before, her presentation was more means more, and less means less. It's very, very profound, but the greater the revenues to the Department of Transportation, the greater the level of service our state network will be. The less amount of revenues we devote to our Department of Transportation, the less service our state's network will provide the citizens of the state. So more means more and less means less. On that note, the Senator from York, you're now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your your commentary is a perfect segue to this question. Mr. Secretary, you observed a moment ago that the pace of inflation in road construction has been arrested. It's flatlining. And so that the why there, I think, is pretty interesting. And I want to take your temperature on a theory. I'm reminded at the macro level, timeless truism from Milton Friedman: inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. In other words, if you throw an increasing amount of dollars at a finite amount of goods and services, the unavoidable outcome is inflation. Okay? So the chart that you and I talked about earlier showed a 23.5% decline in purchasing power from the Department of Transportation over the prior 5 years. Is that right?
It's in the 9 years since 2017, 18 to 2024, 25.
Okay. So historically, when South Carolina adopted its increase in the gas tax, it was done so in a staged fashion. It increased incrementally over a period of years so as to avoid Milton Friedman's truism that if you throw a bunch of money at something at once, you're going to get higher prices. It's not quite the case with the 2022 federal infrastructure bill, which effectively doubled infrastructure spending over the succeeding 5-year period of time. And I would just note that roughly corresponds to your analysis of the arresting of the pace of inflation. So if we got, as a consequence of that, of more dollars chasing a finite amount of goods and services, we saw a 23.5% reduction in our purchasing power. Was that offset by a greater than 23.5% increase in the amount of funding SCDOT got from the federal government over that period of time?
So what we saw, and I'll just kind of backing up to your question here. So 2021, before the federal infrastructure bill passed, we were getting about $700 million per year from the federal government. That was our program. So overall construction program is about $2 billion. It went up to about $1 billion. At that point in time. So it
linear.
Yeah. So it went up in the 22 apportionment was $1 billion. So we saw that we had more flexibility to do things. So it was at the same time that prices went up. So I think my colleagues and I in other states, I think all kind of noticed the same thing, that we saw a rapid increase in prices that occurred at roughly the same period of time as everybody was chasing potentially more work at the same time because we had more funding. I would say there were things going on too of we were coming out of the pandemic at the same time as supply chains were unlocking themselves. So we certainly had quirky things that were having supply chain issues in terms of availability. We had challenges with cement back in 22 and 23. That were just kind of unique to South Carolina. Other states were having challenges with aggregate. So I think there was a combination of unlocking the economy at the same time with an increase. But what I would say is, I don't know if anybody's truly correlated those two, but I think I've noticed exactly the same thing that you are observing, that an increase in funding did result in an increase in federal funding resulted in an increase in prices.
And it sounds like a nearly linear offset, right? You got more money, but everything went up in price at the same time, so your purchasing power was effectively constant as a result, and all we got in exchange for that was more debt. Yeah, thank you.
We do have two more senators and maybe even more, but I do want to follow up on that line. Would construction cost, labor, materials, do you believe they still would have increased even though if the state had not increased the gas tax? Would we have experienced increased cost?
I think how we handled our own market back in 2017 of the phased increase kept, I think, things very stable and normal linear track from there. I think regardless of I think because of that federal funding increase that happened at the time, that big one-time increase, we probably saw some of that happening. But I would say we were seeing issues with labor demand. We were seeing issues with materials and supplies going into it. So I think we probably, even if there hadn't been the federal increase, I think there would have been some level of increase in prices just because of the inflation that was going on in general at that time back in 21 and 22.
Because I know most everything that I purchase, at least from our household, has increased since we initiated the gasoline tax increase here. So without it, with it, I don't believe that the increase in gasoline tax is what's led to inflation.
I would agree with that, sir.
The Senator from Lancaster? Senator from Colleton?
Just have a quick question. I know everything you've said here really goes to the fact that we need more money. I get that. And so I'm harking back to when I used to represent the state in certain issues through the IRF. As I came to Columbia and have gone other places, I see it all the time, and I know all the senators see that you have accidents on the highways, and a tractor trailer would have taken out a part of a bridge or a part of, or might take out the median cords or whatnot. Just going back to my experience working with the state, there was never a robust attempt to replenish or get the monies for the damages caused by these companies or it could be even be individuals where they run into a bridge. And back in the day, even though people think I'm liberal, I never understood why the state of South Carolina didn't go after those entities to get that money, because that's taken away from our overall maintenance costs, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So have we done something different since, I mean, this was probably 20 years ago. Have we done something different to make these insurance companies and bad actors pay for the damage that they've caused to roads that y'all have fixed, or bridges, or what do you call those, railings?
Yeah, guardrails,
around
yeah.
guardrails? Are we robustly going after those companies so that we can keep money in our coffers to pay for the things that you've deemed are important?
Yeah, no, we do pursue, when somebody
I mean robust.
robust. So, yes, we have. The affirmative answer is that, we do go after when a bridge is hit. We'll go after the company if they're at fault for that damage. One of the things we've done, and I want to say it's past 2 years, past 2 years, we've actually hired a firm that does kind of pursuit and recovery for other states. They've been put in place, and so in the past 2 years, we've seen them looking through the accident reports that are coming from DPS and pursuing more, and we've seen an increase in our recoveries out of those damages from a bridge strike or a guardrail strike. So we have been much more doing that just to try to keep our maintenance budgets intact, so we're not paying for repairs that were caused by someone else.
Have you seen a considerable amount of revenues as a result of this new robust pursuing of these at-fault parties?
We have. I don't remember exact numbers, but I can come back to the committee with a report on what we've seen in terms of collections from those. We can get that to y'all.
The other thing I want us to try to look forward to and put on the radar as something we need to look at, because I'm hearing it from a lot of companies, towing companies, law enforcement troopers and whatnot, is these drivers that are coming, and I'm on 95, so that's one of my concerns. There's an awful lot of drivers coming out of Miami that might be Russian drivers, just drivers without any insurance, causing catastrophic damage to property on the interstate and to our citizens. Is there any collaboration nationwide to try to stem this problem?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion going on right now, particularly related to motor carrier enforcement right now. We're not the lead agency on motor carriers. That's the DPS and DMV.
DPS.
Certainly would probably defer to them about those activities that they're doing right now.
I just worry that the reason why I bring them up as a part of your conversation is if these people don't have insurance and they wipe out a whole guardrail, they don't have insurance. That's money we can't get. That's,
And that's been a challenge, and that's why we hired the firm, was that we were struggling in that front ourselves.
thank you.
Senator Morey.
Real quick, and appreciate this presentation. You are doing much with less, and hopefully we'll get more to do more with. I want to speak to what I know you all here are mindful of, given the annual memorial that you have in the event of a fatality with your DOT workers. I know this personally. I've had family, been associated with a family in Horry County, 2 families that have lost a loved one due to the road collisions and bad drivers. So give us a quick update on what you're doing, what DOT as a corporate body is doing to further protect its most valuable team, those folks who are out there with boots on the pavement, as Senator Rice invoked earlier.
Sure. So, obviously we've been working hard. We have new uniforms that really dramatically increase visibility. We put out attenuated trailers, which basically are trailers designed to get crashed into so that they don't hit our personnel. One of the things that I highlighted earlier was I'm very proud of the partnership between us, Department of Public Safety, and the contractor community. Was if you're on going through one of our work zones right now, there are blue light speed feedback trailers that will flash if you are going so much over the speed limit to when you see that blue light, it alerts you to slow down. And what we've seen is speeds have come down, I think about 5-6 miles per hour overall in those work zones. So we've seen a positive from that. But something that we keep very close to heart, obviously we work hard in terms of safety training, making sure that folks know what they need to do and being safe out there in the work zone. And we will be holding our annual memorial again on April 28th, and I appreciate the General Assembly passing that resolution to note that for us as well.
As Senator Walker invoked, anything you need from us to further enhance the protection of our DOT workers, please let us know.
Now, one thing that y'all did last year was pass a required work zone training for new drivers, and we were a pioneer state in that front, so I appreciate all that work.
Hearing no other questions, Mr. Secretary Powell, we appreciate your testimony and all the work that you and your department, and we appreciate the commission and all the hard work you do on the behalf of the people of the state. Thank you, Mr. Powell.